Treasury Secretary Jack Lew telling CNBC that the president won't negotiate over raising the debt ceiling. John Harwood joins us now with more. Most of the stuff, John, some of the stuff to be expected. We've heard it last time. The debt ceiling was an issue, and that is, that stuff we hear over and over again. We already spent the money. This is just about paying the bills, the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. We don't need the uncertainty. Was there anything really out of the ordinary or that we hadn't heard before that struck you, John?
Well, I thought it was clear, Joe, that the administration is open to negotiating on extending government funding, and the nature of a continuing resolution, a temporary extension of that funding, whether it includes tax increases or not, may depend on the size of the deal. Whether it includes entitlement reforms or not are an important element in that. Jack Lew did say that the administration under no circumstances would accept a delay or a partial defunding of Obamacare, which many conservatives have talked about. But what he did make clear, as the president has in the past, in light of what happened when we had the downgrade and all of the white-knuckle moments in 2011, is that they simply will not negotiate on the debt limit. And here's why Jack Lew said that's the case.
I don't think that the leaders are in a place where anyone wants a repeat of 2011. I don't yet see that they have a plan to avoid it, which is one of the reasons it's so important for them to come back in just a couple of weeks and get to work on getting this done and trying to make the debt issue different from other debates that we have.
Now, this, of course, has been the situation that leaders have faced over the summer. Yes, they are committed, Republican leaders and Democratic leaders, to not shutting down the government and not having a debt crisis. The challenge is, where do you get 218 votes in the House and 60 votes in the Senate to get that done? And that's the challenge that awaits us over the next couple of weeks.
John, do you think it's significant that you would run a headline when an administration says it's possible we might open just a crack to negotiating with the other side? When that becomes something so different than the past and an actual headline that, we might actually try to negotiate something instead of just standing fixed on all the demands. I mean, to me, that's a sad state of affairs.
You talking about negotiating on government funding or negotiating on the debt limit?
They're negotiating with Republicans in any context.
Well, they're definitely going to negotiate with Republicans on government spending, and one reason that the line is not as firm as it may appear is that we've got multiple things going on at the same time: extending funding for the government, the fate of the budget sequester, and the debt limit. So when you roll all those together, and significantly, Jack Lew said yesterday in his letter to Congress that the moment when debt limit needs to go up is mid-October. That is closer to when government funding runs out at the end of September than we had expected. Most people had thought that it was likely to happen in November. That means it's all going to get jumbled up, and so not negotiating on one thing doesn't preclude negotiations on the others, and in the minds of members of Congress, these things all get mashed together.
Stay with us. Let's stick with us, John. Let's get some more reaction to Secretary Lew's comments. Joining us now is Joe Watkins, former White House official under George H.W. Bush, and Jimmy Williams, MSNBC contributor and former senior advisor to Senator Dick Durbin. I confused John a little bit, Joe. You probably knew what I was talking about. Haven't presidents in the past sort of I don't know, maybe tried to do a little bit more and not a lot of speeches and campaigning, but maybe actually work behind closed doors with the other side to see what can get done? That's not happening a lot
Joe, you're hitting the nail right on the head. I mean, what has happened traditionally in this White House, unlike in other White Houses, is that the president is whenever he wants to get a message out, rather than actually talk to members of Congress and try to work out a deal, what he does is he goes on the road and gives speeches. Now, he's a wonderful speech maker, by the way. He's a very gifted speaker. But speaking to the choir and having them applaud you for why Congress isn't moving the way you want them to move is analogous to taking a knee at the 5-yard line when you need to score a touchdown. I mean, the president needs to be talking to Congress. He needs to engage members of the House and the Senate. He should have spent this summer playing golf with some of the key members on the Republican side to start talking about what we do and how we fix Obamacare, what can be done to make it viable as opposed to where it is now, that it's going to cause a catastrophe for our economy. He should have been talking to Republicans all summer.
Jimmy, has whatever has caused it, but are there just so many SOBs on the other side that the president shouldn't even be expected to at this point? Is that what you would say to Joe, that he's tried, there's just no point to it? A lot of people in his party tell him, don't even go talk to those guys, there's no point to it. Would that be your answer to why he hasn't done this negotiating behind closed doors?
Well, I mean, when a child touches a burner on a stove and burns his finger, and then the child touches the stove again and burns his finger, and then the child touches the stove again and burns his finger, at some point you're going to run out of fingers to burn. And so I suppose...
Come on, Jimmy. The Republicans were after Bill Clinton nonstop, and yet Bill Clinton passed welfare reform. As a matter of fact, he gave us a budget surplus, as I recall.
You're exactly right. Joe makes a very good point. Joe makes a very good point, which is the Republican House and Senate, Republican House impeached Bill Clinton, and he still worked with him. I'm not sure why he did that, but that's a separate issue.
Okay, well, that shouldn't stop.
Hey, Joe?
Yeah, go ahead. John?
Yes. No, I just want to make one point, which is that the most important negotiation and conversation that's been going on this summer is within the Republican Party.
Correct.
Because you remember they passed the Ryan budget earlier this year, and then they go through the process of trying to pass the appropriations bills matching that Ryan budget. Just before we went on recess, the Republican House would not pass the transportation bill that the Republican Appropriations Committee had prepared based off the Ryan budget. So they've got to figure out their own stance on where they are on the sequester. People like John McCain and Lindsey Graham say, get rid of it. We don't like the defense cuts. You had this meltdown within the House on the transportation bill. They've got to get their own stance together. And it's clear that the Republican leadership does not share the desire of some of the conservatives, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, and other people who say, well, we'll fund the government if they defund Obamacare. And then when Republican leaders say, well, we can't get the votes for that, they say, okay, we'll attach that to the debt limit. They don't have their own strategy set, so it's hard for the president to negotiate in that circumstance.
Can I also make a point? The debt limit has never been a matter of negotiation historically, nor should it be, right? I mean, we shouldn't be debating the debt limit. That is something that we have to do. Now, it's reasonable to debate everything else, and we should be debating the budget and future spending and tax policy, but the debt limit, that really has not been a matter of negotiation.
So, John, you're in the camp that the president has been left with very little else to do than go speak to a different university on any given day where he's going to have a lot of applause and sort of, stay in campaign mode. That really has been his only option, John Harwood. There shouldn't have been anything. The other side is in disarray, so there's been no negotiating that could have been done. Is that what you're saying? Harwood?
Well, the other side has to get their strategy before they can make real progress. And when the other side is, at least a significant minority within the other side, is insisting on a stance which is so far away from what the president could accept, like say, well, we'll get rid of your signature achievement in order to keep the government funding.
John,
the president is looking at that and saying, hey, that's not reasonable.
John, I have heard the word balance in every proposal for the last 2 or 3 years from the president. And balance, I know what it means. It means revenue increases, and it means taxes. Every single thing that he's put forth, the word balance has been there, and we all know what it means every time. I mean, there hasn't been a whole lot of room for movement there, has there, Joe? I mean, I don't know. Is it just me?
I think, Joe, that I've got to say this. What I think is that the fact that, John Harwood has spoken clearly and truthfully about some of the disagreement even within the Republican ranks. And all that means, if you're a president of the United States, if you see that kind of disagreement among Republicans, that there's room to negotiate, that you can start talking to folks. And to not talk to anybody, I think, puts us in a terrible position, the position that we're in right now. It doesn't have to be. The president can look back to past presidents, whether it's Lyndon Johnson, whether it's
just to be
Ronald
clear,
Reagan, whether it's Bill Clinton.
The White House has talked to a group of Senate Republicans in exactly the kind of strategy that Joe has mentioned Dennis McDonough, the White House chief of staff. Republicans like Bob Corker and others are saying that he's been very solicitous of them and to try to get together and open a conversation. They haven't been a lot of specifics, or they haven't made a lot of headway, but they are reaching out to some of those people they think can work with them.
Can I make 2 points very quickly? Chairman Rogers, who's the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, as John just mentioned, this is a very important point, which goes to the internal struggles in the House GOP caucus. He put up a bill in the committee on the THUD bill, the transportation bill. They couldn't get it out. Now, keep in mind, the number on that bill, there are 12 appropriations bills. These are called the 302BCs. Those numbers are determined by the budget, Paul Ryan's budget, of which every single member of the House Republican caucus voted for that budget. So they voted for the budget. And then when the numbers come down to the Appropriations Committee, that number says it's this, and he can't even get that out of his committee because it's not enough spending for them. I'm not sure which is worse. The second point is they asked for sequester. We're sitting in sequester. Next year, sequester is going to be $110 billion. $110 billion. We know that for a fact. That's in the law. If you let sequester stay where it is, you're going to get $1.2 trillion worth of deficit reduction just from letting it stay in place. They asked for it. The president signed it into the law, which I thought was very foolish. And so now they have this. If you want spending cuts, they're there already. They're sitting underneath your feet. Just let them go.
You hate those, but I guarantee you that the Democrats are going to take credit for cutting the deficit when that happens.
$1.4 trillion to $642 billion
since
Obama came in.
Even though you hate it, I know you're going to take credit for it. Man, oh man.
I love you, Joe. I love you, Joe.
I know. I love all you guys.
This is a conversation.
This is what's happening, right?
It's happening in America.
You don't.
Sad commentary.
You are. I saw. You know what? There was a look of sadness that I saw on Andrew's face when we were.
It's depressing.
Why? We've accomplished so much. No. When you get right down to it,
come on,
Joe.
Well, look at the deficit reduction that's occurred over the last 3 years, and just take it forward. It's $4 trillion over 10 years.
That's great.
It's $4 trillion over 10 years.
So now you like it. See, Jimmy likes it too.
I'm just saying this. The process is ugly.
Is it good or bad,
At the
Jimmy?
end of the day, we actually accomplished something.
So it's good, Jimmy.
$1.4 trillion when Bush left office. Today, what's the number? $642 billion. That's the number.
Is that good?
I think it's fantastic. I think we should get down below $500 billion, and that would put us right where we were right after the Bush tax cuts. Yes.
Joe?
I don't think the president, I don't think the White House needs to unsettle markets any more than they're already unsettled. I mean, look at the economy. It's still very, very weak. There's a lot of weakness, underlying weakness in the economy. I mean, why do we need this? There ought to be negotiation. There ought to be discussion. We ought to have a chance to avoid the disaster that
Let's go back to August. Let's go back to exactly 2 years ago when I was luxuriously sitting on Nantucket, and I had to leave Nantucket to fly back to New York to actually have a conversation about how the Republicans were taking us to the brink. I mean, I don't think they want to go there again on this one, on the debt ceiling. I just don't.
Your vacation was disturbed for a cable
It
live
was
shot?
absolutely disturbed, and I was furious about it. It made me hate the Republicans even more.
When do you think
Poor guy.
Jimmy, when will you earn the chops to go to a decent island like Martha's Vineyard? You're still stuck on...
I'm a moderate Democrat. I go to Nantucket.
You're a moderate Democrat. Okay.
Yeah,
I got it.
absolutely.
I can attest to that. All right. John, good job. Thanks. Mike Kevin, the Treasury Secretary on Squawk Box, and as well as Joe and Jimmy. Anyway, we'll see you guys later. Thanks.